Bugs, 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 bugs. I don't know where this came from, but this is actually amazing to see. Don't be like the 30% of you that have not smashed the ever-living crap out of that subscribe button. Smash so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. We're back with the next play breakdown for this week. And this is some very interesting stuff. Most represented decks in the room were actually Superheavy Samurai and Kashtira. Once again, I mean, you really do love to see that Kashtira dominance out here, as this deck still maintains what is by far one of the strongest footholds on the meta. I mean, even with Kashtira stripped down to one Fenrir, one Unicorn, this deck's still a monster. And plus, you know, Superheavy Samurai doing Superheavy Samurai things is actually kind of disgusting at the end of the day. We also had out here two Punk variants, okay? I see that we also have two more Kashtira decks listed down here. I assume that they're probably just like variations of things in terms of things. But that would put that your overall Kashtira representation would be 5 in terms of the whole event. We also had Tier Elements down here doing its thing, which is kind of nice to see that Tierers, the OCG just loves Tier. We also had Candy Treats out here, which you'll see actually in terms of what this deck does is actually very, very scary. We also had in the one-up department here, we had Lyralisk. We had one Runick player stepping up to bat, and they actually topped the event, which Double Fountain is still holding on. We also had one Sprite player, Sky Striker, Pendulum Magicians, I believe that's Marincess, Purely just took a huge hit for this event. I guess people didn't want to play it. We also had one beautiful copy of Vanquish Soul. We had a Herakti player actually show up for the event. That's actually really cool. We had Ice Chain, and we also had some bugs. And to be honest with you, the biggest thing to talk about here was actually bugs and the legendary Herakti player that showed up, but they didn't play, so there's not really much I can comment about that. Now, for your top cut. Is that 2 Kashtira? Yeah, it is. Once again, I want to shout out Kashtira's domination here. You know, once again, even with those reduced numbers here, this deck is still a big pain in the butt. Rise Heart is by far one of the scariest decks in the room here. And the fact that you can actually, you know, control your opponent through walking, talking Floodgate Monster, it is a very, very strong competitor still to this day. We also have Candy Treats down here as well. I'm incredibly happy to see that Candy is still doing its thing here. We also had, what is the Superheavy Samurai version? Man, of course, Super Heavy definitely continues on through the top cut here. That's actually very, very good. We also had our Runick player carry itself all the way on in to the top cut here. Our legendary Bug player carried itself all the way in to top 8. Yes, we do have the list. Normally, Next Play only likes to post top 4, which is actually really disappointing. I wish they would post the whole top 8. It's like no point in just having the top 4. But all right. We also have over here, I can't remember for the life of me what the deck is underneath Pendulum Magician here in terms of representation. And then we also have, well, Pendulum Magician. I mean, looking at the overall top cut here, their meta pre-Duelist Nexus is wild to me in terms of like representation, and the fact that like Kashtira has, you know, kicked back off into like this crazy monster that players are having issues with, the fact that Metagame Vernalizer has become a very real threatening deck out here in terms of metagame development, you can think, you know, Superheavy Samurai skill set. And when you see that list here in a second, you're gonna be like, what in the world is actually going on here in terms of things? Just kidding, it's Superheavy Samurai, good stuff with some Candy Treats. Winning your event here, I kid you physically not here. This is Vernalizer, Superheavy Samurai, Madolche. Now, let's take a moment to appreciate what this monstrosity is, because the universal power of the pendulum scales gives this deck a lot to push for, right? Like, the fact that this deck can just produce through so many different lines of synergy, everything is earth in here, all right? Like, you don't get punished for the earth locks, all right? It's actually quite interesting. Also, you know, most of the Madolche cards facilitate additional extenders out here. You'll be able to actually have some board interruptions out here. And then, I mean, the rest of the gas is just to the pendulum scales. Yeah, you can actually set up pendulum scales with this deck and actually be able to pull off a successful pendulum summon. I can't believe I'm actually analyzing this and actually seeing this at this stage, because looking just at how crazy good this actually looks on paper, I actually wonder if we'll get to see something similar to this actually touch down in the TCG. Side deck looks very, very standard. The entire extra deck looks like generic stepping stones that you would want to see. There's nothing, yeah, looking at this, there's nothing out of left field that I would say is too crazy or out of the realm for expectations. Okay, sure. Next up is our Kashtira deck. Now, the first thing you're going to notice about this list is this deck has opted to actually play Reinhardt's here as stepping stones. You can thank Lightheart here for allowing that all to be possible. Basically, you get to kind of like reverse engineer like combo plays with this. This deck has a lot of one-ofs in it. Holy moly, man. Like, the amount of like kind of reverse engineering that I feel like you have to go through here to get like the best value out of this deck is really good. And also, I mean, they do have access to Dagda, Saruja, Barricade Borg Blocker. Barricade Borg Blocker being a resource that you can just recur back value is good. I also see, of course, the Crossout Designator, we can actually ping the one of Droll that we actually play. And of course, this deck does play Necker Valley. It still wants to play preventative measures to stop the opponent from playing the game. Like, that's kind of like the downside, like how developed the meta has become, is you do have to focus on some of those stronger anti-meta cards in order to stick around here. Next up here is actual Superheavy Samurai. And of course, I see the card in here next to the Nefarious and the Maxi. Yeah, this guy enables the FTK. So essentially, the way that this deck does, you basically can do some BS and basically FTK your opponent. It's not really all that possible come the TCG version, because we don't have Electromite. Electromite's basically the piece of the puzzle that makes this whole thing go round. The fact that you can't really load it up into the extra deck and have immediate access to it is what kind of hurts that. But looking at this particular build, you can essentially see like how the resource creation is going to work for those pendulum scales when we do get them. And I do say this very, very honestly. If you do not have Superheavy Samurai stuff and you are planning on building this deck, your timer is massively running out. Like, we might actually see some crazy stuff with this come TCG. Next up is the reduced power of Fountain and Friends. You know, even with how this deck has lost a Fountain, it still doesn't care. It's like, okay, cool, I guess we'll just go ahead and play 2 Fountain. I mean, they still have triple card demise and 1 skill drain. I actually think that's the thing that makes me happiest about this is, you know, with Fountain going away and skill drain being pressured down to lower numbers, they just have to focus more on the floodgate aspect things. Yeah, it stinks losing skill drain, but you just play some Solemn Strikes at that point. Strike being able to detour like a power card that your opponent's trying to play is good. The deck also has to rely on Ghost Reaper. Now, honestly, if you can flip a Ghost Reaper in one of your hardest matchups to win the game, you may as well consider it, because you should be able to end the competition right there. Ghost Reaper has been a massive uptick in the OCG as of late. And of course, being able to out, you know, big old Nor with Exceed Encore helps out a lot. Now, this is our B-Trooper 60 card insect pile. Now, honestly, I see grass looks greener in here, which is kind of interesting at the end of the day. I mean, it's just a lot of free food for this deck. I see that we are playing, is that just free outlets or free searchability for like level 4 insects, I guess? Or just insect fodder in general for this deck. Looking at like this pile in terms of like how the I can't even say I know how the combo works for this. This just looks like a massive big pile of insect that I just wanted to try to combo up and generate as much advantage as it possibly could in the quickest manner possible, which I mean is very, very, very highly up there for what is possible. Overall, I mean, I don't really have much else to say about this. I think in terms of decks. This is by far one of the most interesting ones out of the day, that's for sure. So what do you guys think? Please, comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later in the day, guys. Peace out. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.